Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second in Digi International's series of EMEA-oriented webinars this week. Every day for the rest of this week at 10 a.m. Central European Time, we'll be conducting webinars across our 4 core product groups. Today, we're covering Digi International's range of cellular routers and gateways for enterprise, industrial, and transit applications. But you may also will be interested in our upcoming presentation this Friday, which will focus on Digi International's infrastructure management port server devices. Next slide, please. Okay. There will be plenty of opportunity to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions at any point during the webinar, either by using the webinar questions facility in the menu, or you can send an email to digi.webinars@digi.com, and we'll be answering all the questions at the end during the Q&A session after the webinar. The 3 presenters today are myself. My name is Ron Singh. I'm the Director of Channel Sales at Digi International EMEA, but also Alistair Craven, who's the Director of the Sales Engineering team here, and Michael Pohl, who is a Principal Technical Sales Engineer for our cellular and box products. Okay, so for those of you who aren't that well acquainted with us, Digi International is a US-based IoT technology and solution provider. In Europe, we have multiple sites and staff across the continent, and our product offering in Europe falls into these 3 segments. Digi International's box product portfolio, which includes a range of cellular routers and gateways for enterprise, industrial, and transit applications, out-of-band console management products, and solutions for USB over IP. Digi International's software suites. We boast a plethora of software-based platforms and tools for development, deployment, and management of multiple IoT hardware products. And Digi International's OEM, or embedded and RF products, which include our family of Connect Core, system on module, and single board computer products based on NXP MPUs, and Digi International XB, our range of footprint compatible RF modules for 2.4 sub-gigahertz and cellular connectivity. And over all of those products, spanning them all, we have Digi International's TrustFence, which is our proprietary security framework, incorporating several aspects of security, from secure boot to anti-tamper. TrustFence is over-the-air upgradable and assists many of our customers in removing the barriers of having to develop and manage IoT security measures themselves.
Good morning. So my name is Michael Pohl, or Mipo. I'm presenting today the hardware product overview. We selected a few items for today's webinar that we believe are important that you learn more. So hardware product overview will be the first part. Then second, the operating system makes a difference as we name it, and we are proud what we provide there. Device management, often forgotten. And then EMEA customer examples to close, and we have, of course, a Q&A section at the end. So looking into hardware products as the first section, and I'm with Digi now for over 20 years, and one of the good reasons to stay is really that Digi is always on the edge of new technologies. So when I started, which is a bit ago, everything was pure wired communication. We continued integrated Wi-Fi in our products and started already around 2005 with the first cellular 2G based router, the Digi Connect WAN that you see on the right upper side. And The first project where we developed it was a use case that nowadays everybody knows as predictive maintenance. So means that I detect automatically problems. We provided that product, cellular connectivity, for a company responsible to maintain tower lights, this red flashing beacon. This company had to ensure that the red blinking beacons are always operational, which is a challenge if you don't have any maintenance tools. So that was exciting, and over the years we adopted technology. We followed this XG generations, 2G, 3G, 4G. So always we provided products solving customer needs and formed a well-known brand, and as well important, a quality standard. That's why I've chosen this title. So Digi is a cellular expert you can trust in, and I'm really proud of our products and can really offer this for customers that need reliable solutions. Today, we already deliver products that are named by industry standard 5G ready. So we are a lot engaged in the activities around 5G, even so it's early, but interesting on 5G is that it will be integrated. It's a smooth transition from 4G, so that you don't need to have 5G already today. A customer that has a up-to-date 4G router can participate from a lot of things that happening with carriers in the 5G area. So 5G ready means that you have gigabit Ethernet ports on your router and enough CPU port, enough CPU power. To make transition smoothly, and I get to this later, we added additional standards like what we name Digi Core module. So as I said, I'm proud on it. We have various differentiators which at the end makes a difference why customers purchasing our products now for over 15 years. Here's a list of common differential values. Some of them are hardware-based, others are within our router operating system DAL that Alistair will present you later on. To highlight just a few, like the resilience, we did a lot to have a router that works 365 days, 24 hours without any administrator intervention. We name this Digi SureLink. And a lot of customers come to us when they first believed a cheap router made for consumer can work in projects as well, and then realize there is a lot of cost in total ownership. So we invented a lot in that. The last years, security came more important. We have a Digi security officers, and one of his terms is, it's not a question if it's happened, it's a question when it happened that you have a security problem. And we invented this Digi TrustFence umbrella to bundle our security activities, and you will learn more on that one. We added security components to our hardware. Device management, very important. You will hear later on by Alistair. Good device management concept is often underestimated, and it should be definitely part of a cellular product, and we provide good tools that you learn further on. Warranty is another point. We trust in our hardware and offer 3-year warranty with each product, and you can extend to 5 years if it makes sense for your project. Extended availability represents the vertical markets we provide to. So we offer what we often name same form fit function to our customers so that they continue to purchase a router often over 10 years or more, and they don't need to change their design, which is important either when they did certifications for the product or it will be expensive to change the hardware. So another point to trust Digi. Last but not least, an important differentiators from other vendors is we have a large team of technical experts, engineers, and salesperson in EMEA to support you. And that is not just for rollout in EMEA, but as well for worldwide rollout, we have good expertise. So I mentioned it a bit, this core plug-in modem standard is something that Digi provide with some of our routers, and it's a nice feature that you can change the radio module easily in the field when it's needed. It hides the SIM cards which are pushed into this module inside the router. You have dual SIM as mentioned earlier, and we extend this family of modules over time. Later on, you will see when it's more available and cost effective, you see 5G modules as well. Today, we start from Cat 4 for EMEA. We provide global modules, very important if you plan to do a worldwide rollout, and as well from a performance. We have today Cat 11, and soon we will have a Cat 18 module. So as mentioned earlier, we follow the developments happening with the carriers and the market. When you look into our offering, it provides you a large flexibility that you find the right product for the right job. Several years ago, a reseller asked, hey, why do you need so many products? Can't you make just a single, like an M2M iPhone that we can sell? But what we see, either from a price optimized reason or demand, there is a reason to have that list of different routers, and even Apple nowadays have not just one iPhone. So that's a good reason. And to make the selection for you a bit easier, we differentiate it in three groups. Two are more hardened, so the industrial for demanding environments, that's typically for machine connectivity. Transportation, ruggedized for transit applications, they are typically have special connectors. Power management is done differently. And then on the most right side, the enterprise family for indoor applications. You will see by the part numbers, the iX Industrial, TX Transport, and Enterprise EX. So all new products will follow this naming convention. So starting with the industrial line, a new product that you see on our website already is our iX20. So like I said, iX for industrial. And it's a good example for a typical Digi product. A consumer grade product that wouldn't mostly fit, as you see the customer on the customer requirements, and industrial grade product is required. Customers, when they work with us, appreciate Digi's expertise and knowledge during the different project phases. So we are not just selling products, we help by solution design and rollout concept, device monitoring management, and as well adopting to new requirements and technologies. So we typically over time develop a relationship with customers, and it's a win-win partnership for both. Another area for industrial products is industrial automation. So our routers are widely used in any kind of industrial automation applications. Customers are, for example, from utilities, machine building, smart cities, and it's all kind of applications where the customer require robust devices with long-term availability and again, expertise and support. Customers either prefer a device fully designed for DIN rail, that's the one on the right side, the WR31, or our new iX20 that is flexible as a Swiss knife, providing all the requirements for customers as you see in the list. And you will get the presentation afterwards that you can look a bit deeper in the information. And as well, I put this link here. We have typical application scenarios where you can see why Digi products are chosen. So next, looking in transportation applications and why we provide specialized hardware here. The products here are really purpose-built routers for the transport industry. They are very successful in projects across EMEA, and we get more and more requests as people see that they really support multiple requirements integrated in a single device. Like it's a single or dual cellular for full redundancy up to Cat 12 performance. In addition, single or dual Wi-Fi, so either dual cellular or dual Wi-Fi, but both options are possible. And together, cellular and Wi-Fi up to 1.7 gigabit. You have 4 gigabit Ethernet port for applications like you see on the right in the bus, that we are the central connectivity device, serial and USB, not just GPS, all kind of nowadays GNSS services. Power management, so people who try to put a standard consumer product in a vehicle have probably seen that the power spikes are not well for a standard router. As well, we provide features that a router automatically gets started or shut down by the ignition send, and we don't drain off the complete battery. We turn off the router if power gets too low. Environment is important, and then the certifications which you would expect, including railway certs like listed below. And what I want to mention here as well, when we look on the WR54 on the left side, if you have questions, does the router support this and that? Our website contains a lot of information. It's a really good database, and you should look there, like specifications. It's a complete list, like what I mentioned, the certifications or approvals, they are listed there. So it's really good collection of information. And in addition to just the specifications, there is a resource tab with videos, with data sheets, a lot of information useful. So spend some time on our website later on and check what we have in there. So going forward, here's a real life example of a project we are working on. It's to for a country to make vehicle communication more state of the art. So putting our router inside emergency vehicles, here a police car. And then of course you want to have redundancy, that you have the dual SIM solution and then have IPsec communication for security. And if primary IPsec fails, it will automatically fail over to the second IPsec. So the router from a hardware point fits perfectly, and as well from an operating system and enterprise networking has lots of features built in here. So going forward, we look on the enterprise product. That's the next family. If a customer say, I have an indoor application, I have a retail branch application, then we offer products there that typically used in such applications, but where nevertheless maximum uptime is a must. Zero touch installation, so the customer wants a high reliable product at lower installations cost. And an important feature, if we go to the next slide on this product, is the remote deployment strategy. So this products got a lot of tweak to be really out of the box, easy installation. So typical, if you look in a retail store, is that the data center is in the back. You often have weak cellular installation. So the only thing you need is an RJ45 cable inside the building. And with our tool set, you can choose the best cellular signal location. There is a battery pack inside for site survey, and then you put the router at that location. The PoE feature can power the router, so you don't need a power plug at that site, and you are well done. You find on our website the term cellular extender. So this fits to the use case that we are often used as the fallback or backup solution, as well sometimes meant primary or failover or backup. And we provide all the kits for installation to make it really smooth and easy. So that was a quick overview, and as said, you have the EMEA team. We are there to help you. We can do trainings to your technical team, how to better support the product. And I listed here the differential values because if you understood them, then you really see that Digi provide a lot of value for you. And we discussed hardware now. Hardware is an important part because if that fails, you are in trouble with your project. But what we see is that the operating system really makes a difference. And Alistair will talk about that now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mipo. Yeah, so the operating system makes the difference. So in the past, Digi has been selling different router products with different operating systems installed, and this is for a variety of reasons, including the acquisition of other companies and their products. So in the past, we've been using 3 router operating systems, SAR-OS, TLR, and XOS. Today, we are only shipping SAR-OS and DAL, and most of our XOS products have already been migrated to DAL. In the future, SAR-OS will be retired, and it will be retired as the products that run SAR-OS are end of life. So we don't expect to convert any products that are running SAR-OS to DAL. So this means that DAL is the present and the future for Digibox products, and we wanted to take a little time to talk about it because of this. So what is DAL, or Digi Accelerated Linux? Well, DAL is Digi's new Linux-based operating system that we intend to use for all our box products going forwards. This came from the acquisition of Accelerated Networks and has a proven history being used in many projects over the years. DAL is based on, or more correctly, it's built by the Accelerated build system. You see a link to that above. This is a system to build a Linux-based operating system or distribution. You may have heard of some other similar build systems like Yocto and Buildroot. DAL is a specialized embedded Linux distribution that has been developed over the last 20 years. It's not just the accelerated build system you see on GitHub above. And there's a lot of proprietary functionality built in that we'll discuss some of later. Again, Digi intends to use DAL as a platform for our box products going forward, such as USB products, terminals, servers, console servers, gateways, and routers. So DAL, a Digi router running DAL is not just another Linux router. There's a full suite of tools and functionality built on top of this, such as support for our security framework TrustFence, which I'll talk about momentarily, full Digi remote management support, which also will be covered later today, and a comprehensive web user interface with dashboards, easy configuration, backup and restore. There's logs and a support report which can help our customers send the correct information to Digi for troubleshooting purposes. We also have a powerful Digi designed admin command line interface. and some cellular connection intelligence. So this includes, for example, automated APN lookup to help with zero-touch deployment, SureLink, failover between SIM cards, and customer intelligence or edge compute, by which we mean custom programs and scripts that can be running our routers or any device running DAL. These can be Python 3.6 applications, but DAL also has the ability to run compiled programs such as those written in C or C++. So Digi TrustFence. Well, TrustFence is, what is that and how does it apply to routers? Well, TrustFence is a security framework that Digi applies to many different products, including our routers. We all understand, I'm sure, that security is every day becoming more and more critical, and taking device security into consideration at design time is key to providing products that are going to be secure for the future. So for our router products, TrustFence security comprises secure boot. So this means that only Digi-signed firmware can run. It means it's not possible for a bad actor to maliciously update some firmware code and trick a user into installing it. Authentication, so all our TrustFence compliant products are shipped with unique default passwords printed on the product label. They don't share the same default password. Protected hardware ports. All input and output ports, including serial and Ethernet, require authentication by default before access to the management protocols can be obtained. Secure storage, so there's a facility to store sensitive data in an encrypted manner that makes it very difficult to retrieve sensitive information from the router, even by a physical attack on the hardware. And secure connections, so Digi's router supports the latest level of encryption and authentication in the communication protocols. In addition, TrustFence compliant routers have a hardware source of entropy. What that means, it's a hardware random number generator. The reason for that is secure connections, they're only really secure if the random number used in the maths to create those secure connections is truly random. Last, but by no means least, is ongoing monitoring and support. So Digi continuously monitors threats and provides patches and updates where necessary. So you can subscribe to receive notifications via our website. Our software development practices include scanning for vulnerabilities and various static code analysis techniques. And our remote management platform can be used to ensure that devices in the field are compliant with the security policy, as well as roll out any needed updates, including security patches. DAL also makes it really easy to configure a secure firewall, because with DAL, the firewall is enabled by default, so you don't really have to do anything. We also have pre-configured zones that can be applied to each interface with appropriate firewall settings. For example, the external zone will block all inbound unsolicited traffic by default. It's also, of course, possible to completely customize the firewall rules if necessary, if you need to go into that level of detail. So the web user interface, we also have, obviously, a DAL comes with a web user interface, as most products do. One thing I wanted to mention is that you can see we have multiple instances of things you need, like, for example, VPN tunnels or logical Ethernet interfaces. Let me just see if I can show you that. So I've got a web user interface here. Go to device configuration. If, for example, I wanted to add a VPN tunnel or a logical Ethernet interface, I can go into interfaces and just give it a new name and add it. And I can have basically as many instances of these as I want, as many logical IP addresses, as many routes, as many IPsec tunnels. There's obviously will be a limit to what the hardware is capable of, but there's no fixed limits in the software that you're going to run up against, which is a big improvement on what we had previously. We have some nice monitoring features and status screens. Perhaps an interesting one to have a quick look at is this IntelliSense one. You can see, for example, on here, data usage on my network here at home. If I look at this TV, we can see what sort of IP addresses the TV has been accessing. If we look at top usage by server, we can see who's been on all these different services. That's probably my brother next door on PlayStation there. DAL provides access to a Digi designed admin command line interface, but also if you turn on the feature, you can get to the Linux shell. So the admin CLI is a Digi command line interface that makes it easy to configure the router and view status and stats and logs from the command line. Debugging tools are also available, such as an analyzer trace. The admin command line interface contains tab completion and built-in help to make it easy for network administrators to configure and troubleshoot from the command line if this is required. So it's a big improvement on what we had before in SAR/OS, where there wasn't really any built-in help or tab completion. It makes configuring from the command line much quicker. Okay, as we mentioned, Digi SureLink. So every cellular router deployment requires a link integrity monitoring and recovery system. And Digi SureLink in DAL takes this to a new level. The router can be configured to monitor and test that all interfaces are working correctly by end-to-end tests. It will take every possible step to recover from a connectivity issue, including restarting radio modems and even rebooting the router. It's possible to configure any number of test targets on any interface, including tunnels such as IPsec. And this ties into what I was saying on the previous page. We don't have limitations on things. So if you want to ping, 20, 30 IP addresses for your tests, you can do that. Digi SureLink is enabled by default on the cellular or mobile interface to ensure routers will take all possible steps to remain connected, even if the user has given this no thought. Failover. So failover in a router context is switching to another interface or path when the primary interface or path to a destination is not working correctly. SureLink can also be used to facilitate automatic failover between interfaces. For example, when SureLink has detected a problem with end-to-end data over an interface, the metric will be increased, allowing another interface to take over. So DAL supports Ethernet to cellular failover, cell modem 1 to cell modem 2 failover, SIM to SIM failover, IPsec tunnel to IPsec tunnel failover, amongst other possibilities. Also, you can see here the list of routing protocols we support, which they're often used in failover scenarios as well. So I think it's very important that we just spend a little time now to consider the improvements of DAL over some of the previous operating systems we've shipped, especially SAR/OS, which is widely used by our customers today. I'm hoping that many of our customers are going to be watching this webinar and they will need to be thinking about moving from DAL to SAR/OS at some point. So the configuration is more organized. So this makes it easier to configure than SAR/OS. IPv6 support is added, and this is an important one because we're often asked about this. Customers need it for the future. And also it's not possible to ship to certain countries without it, such as Brazil. So it's especially important for customers that play in the global marketplace. It's also quite important for many electrical utilities that are also very keen on IPv6. SAR/OS products are secure. However, Secure Boot and Digi TrustFence take the device security to a new level. This gets more important as every year goes by. We mentioned that already. In many cases, DAL can detect the APN to use automatically, and this is great for users who lack basic knowledge to get their device configured and working, but also it's great for zero-touch provisioning. DAL supports dual APN, so this means that you can connect to more than one network at the same time via a single SIM card, perhaps a private and a public network. It's a feature that sometimes asks for again in the utility market. Dual cellular, so DAL supports more than one cellular modem in a product, so this makes it possible for us to have the TX54 and TX64 products with 2 cell modems in. Use cases for this vary, but one use case could be to increase the bandwidth, another to have dedicated cell modules for dedicated purposes, such as in a vehicle to use 1 cell modem for telemetry, CCTV point of sale, and the other for passenger Wi-Fi. Load balancing is another great new feature that's useful when there is more than one interface. So if we think about a Wi-Fi hotspot example, it can double the amount of bandwidth that's available for all the users. Some connections will be sent down 1 cell modem and some connections down the other in a round-robin fashion. It's possible to weight the load balancing as well. if one interface is faster than another. When both interfaces are working, this provides higher capacity. It also provides redundancy in active failover. So SureLink, we've mentioned already, but there are some improvements to that. And DAL also is more robust than SAR OS. You know, we have occasionally introduced bugs in SAR OS in the past, as some of you may know, and this can happen due to the complexity of developing this platform. DAL being based on Linux and having the input of much more testing and development is and will be more robust. So with SAR OS, we've been able to create applications in the Python programming language, which is good, but DAL brings these further possibilities. So as well as Python, we can run Linux shell scripts and even compiled C or C++ programs. So this brings performance and flexibility that we could only have dreamt of with SAR OS. Going forwards with DAL, we will have better consistency across Digi's products and models, which is also good for Digi and Digi's customers if you purchase multiple products. You don't have to learn how to support, upgrade, configure multiple operating systems. DAL also supports higher performance than SAR OS. For example, it supports multi-core CPUs, which SAR OS does not. And with DAL, future evolution will be easier. So the integration of new features and protocols is much faster with DAL than it ever could be with SAR OS, because SAR OS is based on a completely proprietary custom code, whereas DAL's based on Linux. And so with DAL, Digi's got a really strong position in the cellular market with support for the industrial, enterprise and transportation routers Meepo mentioned, all running the same operating system and all having the same core software features. So device management, central management is key, and we offer Digi Remote Manager to our customers to assist with this. Remote Manager can support vast numbers of deployed IoT devices and billions of data points. Insights from network devices are actionable, which means alarms and other notifications can be created to trigger some activity to occur. Remote Manager will ensure that the device functions correctly. Customers can scale their IoT deployments with the ability to track every device, monitor performance, receive notifications of vulnerabilities, gain insights, and perform predictive maintenance. But why do we need device management? Well, having so many customers allows us to learn not only from their success stories, but also the problems they've unfortunately faced. And there are several common pain points that exist when moving from a small scale deployment or a proof of concept to a large scale deployment. This is because the complexity significantly increases. And it's still surprising how many of our customers don't think about device management properly, and all the processes need to manage devices throughout the life cycle from the outset. So let's have a look at how this impacts the project life cycle. This is what we call the spiral of pain. So most implementations, network implementations, start out with good intentions and demonstrate connectivity and workflow, but when the number of devices increases, the complexity starts to accelerate rapidly. And this complexity is often overlooked because when we evaluate a small group of devices, it typically doesn't adequately illustrate how quickly things can get out of control. So some customers first experience reliability issues when expanding their deployment. This can be due to it being difficult to manage different firmware versions and configurations. If the configuration is not carefully controlled centrally, engineers will make changes whilst troubleshooting, and we often see customers end up with different configuration and firmware versions on different sites. Next, management issues begin to surface as you need to add new equipment and more device types. And then we see scalability issues that can often cause customers to really completely rebuild the system in order to accommodate growth. For example, the system may not have been designed to accommodate changes to the product or future variants of the product. Or it may just be that the system cannot scale reliably to a large number of devices. And all of these things can open up potential for security issues. So unless security was designed into the original solution, there will be a problem, and one security event can cause ripple effects throughout the entire network. So again, keeping control of the configuration and the firmware is a key element to maintaining a secure network. So the key takeaway here is the greater the number of devices in your network, the greater the risk of failures and IT failover, IT pain, and Remote Manager can help our customers to avoid this by putting into place good management and monitoring practices from the start. So what is Remote Manager? Is it a network management system, a device management system, an IoT platform? Well, in fact, it's all three. But let's focus really on the network management. So let's have a look at some of the key features of Remote Manager from a network management perspective. So we have zero touch deployment, securely accessing devices in the field, updating the firmware and configuration en masse, security compliance monitoring and remediation, monitoring device health and connectivity, managing alerts and alarms, and also a comprehensive API for integration with other systems. The most fundamental issue that a management platform has to solve is connectivity to devices. So often in the world of cellular connectivity, devices with a SIM card are not directly accessible from the internet. Often in Europe, on the cellular network, devices will be assigned private IP addresses and connect to the internet via NAT, or to protect from data overages, there will be a firewall between your device and the internet. Both of these prevent you as an IT admin from being able to access your device, the iX20 in this example. So when using Remote Manager, the device will establish an outbound TLS encrypted connection to Remote Manager, solving the connectivity problem. So once it's connected, of course, you can do anything you need to it, including accessing the command line of the router and accessing devices attached to the serial port of the router or a serial server, whatever it happens to be. Many of our customers deploy their routers on private networks, and it's still possible to connect to Remote Manager from private networks. There are various methods, including building an IPsec tunnel from the private network to Remote Manager. The example pictured here shows the use of an HTTP proxy. So our products can be configured to connect to Remote Manager via an HTTP proxy like Squid, and this can solve practical problems, but also for a significant number of customers, it can waylay their security concerns by providing a single point of control for the connection of all devices from the private network to Remote Manager. Next, I want to talk about deployment and commissioning. So Digi Remote Manager has a feature called Configuration Manager. You can follow down here the flow. This feature, Configuration Manager, it can be used to create a snapshot of a correctly configured device, including in this snapshot firmware, configuration, and any site-specific settings. This feature can be used to automatically apply the same firmware and configuration to any new device that connects to the platform, which is extremely useful for staging or commissioning a new device. Products running the Dell operating system, as we discussed earlier, will try to connect to Remote Manager automatically as soon as they are powered on with a SIM card present or an Ethernet connection to the internet. They're capable of detecting the correct APN to use from a list of known APNs in order to get connected. Sometimes, though, it's still necessary to configure an APN or program in a SIM pin number locally, and with some Digi products, this can be achieved by the installer using a Bluetooth on their mobile app via the Digi Remote Manager app pictured here. So once connected, though, Profile Manager or Config Manager will be used to automatically push the correct firmware and configuration onto the unit, making it fully commissioned. An important feature of Remote Manager, as we discussed in the cycle of pain, is the security that it brings to our customers' networks, and security compliance is a key feature. So the Configuration Manager feature we just discussed on the last slide can also be used to configure to monitor the units once they are deployed. So on a regular basis, Configuration Manager will check that the devices are running the correct firmware and also have the correct configuration on. It's not unheard of for engineers to make changes to the configuration while troubleshooting and forget to put those configuration changes back when they're finished. Also, if there's any kind of security breach resulting in a missing configuration, this will be highlighted by the Configuration Manager feature. So Configuration Manager can be configured to create an alert and or correct the non-compliance immediately by applying the correct configuration or firmware to the device in question. We can also use Configuration Manager to update the firmware and configuration of sites as necessary to roll out security updates. And as we said, ongoing monitoring and support is a key part of the security lifecycle and is also a key component of Digi TrustFence. It's also important to monitor the performance of the devices in your network and by extension, the entire network. To understand network performance, we need to measure it. Digi's routers can be configured to send various health metrics to Remote Manager on a regular basis, such as latency, measure dropped packets, signal strength, signal quality, temperature, memory utilization, reboots, and much more, a really massive amount of data. And this criteria can be used to determine whether a device is considered healthy or not. and this information is provided in various dashboards in Remote Manager as either as a summary view, as you can see here, or in great detail on a device-by-device basis for enhanced troubleshooting and analysis. Remote Manager also has an alert feature built in. There are a number of built-in alerts that can be configured, such as if a device has been disconnecting too frequently or has been offline for too long, or it's sending data to the platform and the data doesn't match a certain condition, or it's not sending data to the platform when it should. It's also possible to create custom alerts. Regarding getting the notifications, we have support for email, pull or push to a third-party application or system via our APIs, and also the Remote Manager user interface itself. So I'd just like to mention that everything can be done with Remote Manager. Everything that can be done with Remote Manager through the user interface can also be done programmatically via our RESTful web services or API. And we have a really nice API Explorer feature that allows users to define and test API calls from within Remote Manager itself, and then export that code that makes the API call into your favorite programming languages, so you can copy and paste it in there. Makes programming with our APIs really easy. So it allows our users to link Remote Manager, for example, to CRN systems, supervisory systems, or other cloud platforms. As we also mentioned earlier, Digi Remote Manager is an IoT platform, and the APIs can also be used to send or receive data from IoT devices. Regarding IoT data, it's not a requirement that customers send any IoT data they may wish to collect through Remote Manager to where it needs to go. As you can see on the diagram on the right, most of our products are agnostic and will allow users to send data directly to wherever it needs to go, such as AWS, Azure, or a custom application or server. However, it can help with scalability, reliability, and also simplification to send the data through Remote Manager. I won't go into the detail of that now. But yeah, just to summarize here, so the key network management functionality again. So what Remote Manager can bring is zero-touch deployment, secure access to devices in the field, updating the firmware and configuration en masse, security compliance with monitoring and remediation, monitoring the device health and connectivity, creation of alerts and alarms, and of course, if you're building an IoT system or you just want to remote control Remote Manager, the API for integration with other systems. So with that, I'm going to move on to Ron to present the next section.
Thank you, Alistair. So if you go on to the digi.com website, you'll find many examples of customer success stories. We have a wealth of testimonies and examples of projects and undertakings we've done with various customers. But it's occasionally leveled at us that being a US company, many of those examples are very US centric and don't necessarily reflect some of the environments that we have in Europe, for example, that we still have 3G networks in various regions, and certain applications such as oil rigs, for example, don't apply in Europe. So what I wanted to put together here in a few slides was just some examples of volume customer use cases that we have in Europe today. And these are customers that we've been working with for some time and employ our products around Europe. And just to give some idea, one of the examples there on the left-hand side is a vehicle telemetry. And we've got customers who are involved in pan-European fleet management, telemetry data, and even connecting to sensors within the haulage trailers, needing to send valuable data, for the carriage of environmentally sensitive goods, such as foods or medicines, which need to be tracked for temperature or how much they're moving around, etc. Monitoring of weather. We have a lot of customers, or we have customers who build quite advanced meteorological stations transmitting real-time weather data and have a real need for reliable routers that can perform with minimal human intervention in very remote locations. And then a widespread application that we see many customers in Europe involved with is sort of leading edge. Europe is very much at the leading edge of digital advertising signage, where it is absolutely required to have reliable remote location transmission of high-res images or even video content in quite a dynamic fashion, because content can be changing even across different times of the day. Public clocks, we have customers building public clocks, particularly for transit systems, so bus stations, train stations, airports, what have you. As you can imagine, there's a requirement for real-time monitoring to ensure that the clocks are not only keeping good accuracy, but are in full working order. You know, we're talking about an environment that requires reliable timekeeping if you're to make your flights and trains, etc., on time. Secure safes and storage. We have customers who use our routers to manage real-time tracking of safe access. And that could be even down to monitoring changes in weight using strain gauges loaded or embedded rather in the shelves of a safe or a safe installation. And we have a customer in particular for compressed air and vacuum equipment, but any high valued engineering asset, in this case it's vacuum and pump equipment, but we have customers who use routers not only for tracking and tracing of the equipment, but they also use it to monitor the working operation, and this assists with preemptive maintenance. Something that Mipo mentioned earlier on in his presentation. Lottery terminals is another one. Lottery terminals are often installed in remote retail locations that don't necessarily have reliable on-site communication for those all-important lucky number transactions to be transmitted. These cosmetic healthcare, this is a customer who was building basically a pop-up cosmetic healthcare stations that would be installed in shopping malls or retail parks in bespoke locations that could move around and required having data sent back, because it is still a healthcare application, having data sent back to a central headquarter location. And then finally, we have many customers around Europe who are, this again is a strong application segment for us, customers who absolutely rely on being able to transmit data real time in a very dynamic fashion with secure and reliable operation. These are going to railway stations, into airports, and it's really important that they can operate reliably without having to send out, and the cost of sending out a human intervention to ensure that they're switched back off, switched on again, or some other fault has occurred. Reliability is key for this kind of application because the deployment is so wide. If you can imagine in a city location, in train stations, urban traffic is quite high. It's not easy to get maintenance engineers out on site to multiple locations if there are failures. So having a reliable router in place is really a fiscal difference to the customers using them. Okay, so I'd like to thank Mipo and Alistair for the presentation content there. These seminars, webinars will be made available on our website, and you will be able to contact your local Digi contact to get hold of a copy of the presentation if you wish. As mentioned at the very beginning, if you like to ask any questions, please use the questions tab or facility in the chat, in the menu rather, the questions facility in the GoToWebinar menu, or you can email us on digi.webinars@digi.com. I've had a few questions come through already, so Mipo and Alistair, if you could help. The first question is the trend at Digi to gradually stop supporting 3G, or will we continue to build products with 3G failback?
Okay.
Alistair,
Yeah, I can take
might
that
be
one.
on
Yeah.
mute.
So yeah, we'll continue to build products with 3G. We're obviously moving on to new radio modems as time evolves. Some of the very high performance modems, may not support 2G, but 3G is supported going forwards, and we also will continue to support 2G products as well.
So we are in close contact with carriers and can provide you help with the shutdown of the different networks. It's not just always 3G get shut down, sometimes 2G as well. So we can provide help, and for sure, as we said, long-term availability, we help and provide products that work with the European and worldwide carrier infrastructure.
Thanks, Mipo. And we have another question coming through. Not a complete surprise. We did wonder this one would come up. Any idea when we'll be seeing 5G product from Digi?
Yes, well, we are working at the moment with some 5G modems. We're building some prototype 5G units where we'll be actually sharing these with a very small number of customers for testing purposes. At this point in time, 5G modems are very expensive, and 5G networks are not widespread, so it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for most of our customers to look at migrating to 5G just yet. But we're certainly monitoring this very closely, and we're looking at what we need as a concept, what we need to do to create some 5G products. Our Senior Director of Research and Innovation is working very closely with 5G module vendors, and we've got about 4 or 5 different 5G modems on test as we actually speak. And as I say, we've got some prototype routers already created. Don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Mipo.
Yeah, what I wanted to say, a lot of customers are a bit nervous when nowadays 5G is there on the horizon, and can I still install 4G router? Shouldn't I wait for 5G? The nice part in that standard of 5G is that it's based on 4G, and a lot of networks providing 5G, they work in a way that modems first connect 4G and then use 5G features. So that means that if you have a 4G router, you very much can participate from that extension, and 4G will stay really a longer time in the market, so that with a modern 4G router, you are mostly well positioned in the market. And so we have some nice webinars on our website about that story as well, that you have to think about what is my use case. Often for M2M or IoT applications, the throughput of 4G is pretty much well set. So no hurry to go to 5G today for most of the customers, and watch the market. And as Alistair said, it's quite expensive today. So watch it, ensure what's your need, and then follow the market.
Thanks, Mipo. Okay, another question here. Is the IX20 replacing the WR21?
Well, yes, that's the plan. The iX20 product will replace the WR21. So we would like all of our customers that are using the WR21 to start evaluating what that change will make. It's a change to a new operating system from SAR OS to DAL, and a change of hardware as well. And so we're ready to help support you through this transition.
Thank you. And final question, do Digi make their own cellular modems that are used inside the products? If not, can you say which manufacturer's modems you use?
We do not, and we can say, because it's actually written inside the routers, as it were. You can actually see what model is inside each modem, but we've got lots of different ones. So we use various modems from Telit, some from Sierra Wireless. We've got some we just launched for the IX20 from QuickTel, and we're also looking at various 5G modems, as well, as I mentioned earlier, from all kinds of different vendors, but I won't go into those details just yet. But currently shipping, we've got different modems from Telit, Sierra and QuickTel.
And to add, it's part of the expertise and value that you can trust in from Digi, that we have a strong expertise following the market and choosing the right modem for your needs. So it's the same form fit function, that we select which modem fits better, that we work with end of life of modem smoothly, so it helps you to have a robust, stable router over time.
Thank you. That's all the questions. Thank you all very much again for taking the time to join in on our webinar. As mentioned, you may be interested to join the one we'll have this Friday at 10 a.m. Central European Time, which will cover our infrastructure management products, the other half of our box product offering, which includes solutions for out-of-band console management and USB over IP, as well as various serial to Ethernet products that we build as well. So if you're able to, you can find an invite for that on our website, or you can contact your local Digi contact or distributor. And thank you again for joining, and thank you again to our presenters, Michael Pohl and Alistair Craven. Thank you. Good morning.